Sports Minutes with Ziaul Raushan.
Money FM 89.3. It's time for Sports Minutes with me, Ziaul Raushan, here at the Singapore Grand Prix alongside Deepanraj Ganesan, my usual partner in crime, in a weekend where we moonlight as motorsport journalists. Good weekend, Deepan?
Terrific weekend. Saw good racing. A good storyline in the end with George Russell winning the race, and I think plenty to savour.
Yeah, Saturday night was pretty alright. Sunday proved to be awesome for George Russell. Clearly, the secret to winning the Singapore Grand Prix is starting the week with you.
I wish, but I think terrific for George Russell. I think his struggles here have been well documented in 2023, where he crashed on that final lap. 2024 finishing just outside the podium on 4th, and right here in Singapore in 2025 converting pole into victory. And I think he really deserved it. In terms of talking to him before this race weekend, he talked about how he's ready to take the next step. This was the next step.
Talk to me as a sporting fan, Deepan. What is it about a comeback story, a redemption arc that sits so well with us sports fans?
Yeah, I think really it's about the underdog story almost. I think it's fair to say that George Russell winning from pole is not unexpected given the history of pole setters winning the race. But in terms of who we expected to win coming into this race weekend before the qualifying, I don't think many would have told you George Russell. Many would have said Max Verstappen despite his struggles here. And many more would have said the McLarens, either of the two McLarens, Oscar Piastri or Lando Norris. But I think in terms of rooting for George Russell, I think people want to see an outsider, and that's what he really was in this race. And terrific play from the team as well, Mercedes, in terms of how they started the race. And I think once he got the go-ahead where Max wasn't able to overtake him on the first turn, I think it's great for him, and hopefully this will propel him to take the next step as well.
Absolutely. We'll talk about the Max and the McLarens shortly. But to your point about taking that next step, when he spoke to you on Thursday, he said he's ready for his time to come. Do you think this is the tonic he needs, if not for this season, then for 2026?
I think in the context of how Singapore is a difficult race, and every driver tells you that. Let's be real, right? Max Verstappen is still yet to win in Singapore. So it's a very hard track for drivers to master, and given the fact that he has now mastered this, it's almost like a psychological win. The fact that he's crashed here before, the fact that it's such a hard race, I think it will give him the belief more so than ever that he can be a future world champion if he's mastering tracks like the Marina Bay Street Circuit.
Yeah, please don't remind Max that he hasn't won at this track, because he's been sprinkling salt all across the press conferences and interviews. He's sort of come to life since the post-summer break. I think that's 3 podium finishes in a row now, maybe 4. But unfortunately, this track still evades him. He's 63 points now behind Oscar Piastri. Do you suspect he's going to go all the way in the remaining 6 races?
I think he has to. I think when you look at Max Verstappen and what he's achieved in Formula One over the years, you can tell that he has got a great mentality, and I think that's what he'll bring with him for the remaining races. As long as there's a sniff of a chance, you expect Max to attack it, and I think he did that in Singapore this time around. I mean, this track, after all, hasn't been the best ground for Max and Red Bull over the years, but the fact that they got to quite a close performance, I think even George Russell told us in press conference that if Max had taken the lead at the first turn, it would have been Max's race. So I think it tells you a lot about where this Red Bull car is at the moment, this RB21, and I think that Max will go into the remaining races knowing that he came into Singapore on the back of 2 dominant wins, almost got a 3rd win here, and given the fact that the next few races hasn't been a good stomping ground for the McLarens last year, I think Max will feed off that and go really hard.
Yeah, I joked about needing a popcorn order for the remainder of the season. I'm sure the listeners are tightening their seatbelts for what should be an exciting ride. You talk about Max possibly hunting Oscar down. It's not just Max Oscar needs to worry about. There's a certain Lando Norris, and he signalled his intentions in lap 1 today, not giving his teammate an inch. He claimed there was space and therefore he took it. But now with McLaren sealing the Constructors' title, do you expect fireworks between both drivers?
Yeah, I think even though Lando Norris did say in the press conference that he's always been racing, I think when you sort of have confirmed the Constructors' title, even though that he was there for McLaren's taking for a while now, I think it sort of changes your mentality a bit. I mean, he has to, right? And I think Lando will now know that he has to be a bit more aggressive in races. And he said that in the press conference as well. He said he has more to lose. And I think that tells you where his mentality is. And I think he will bring that mentality with him the remaining races. And I expect really tight racing between the pair now.
And where do you think Oscar's head is at? He's sort of had a wobble since the season restarted after the summer break. He must be feeling the heat.
I think he definitely is. I mean, after all, during the race itself, he said that's not fair, or to the effects of that. And I think he will realize now more so than ever that nice guys don't win the title. He now knows that he's got a fight on his hands and it's coming from his teammate. I mean, forget Max. I think Lando is really who he needs to worry about. And as long as that sort of rivalry is there, I expect the best to come out of both of them.
Now, there's so much about the Singapore Grand Prix beyond the racing, and we'll talk about that in a short while. But Deepan, before we move on from the racing, anything else stood out for you up and down the paddock this weekend, apart from my company, of course?
Yeah, of course, your company is always elite. I think it's always nice to be at the Singapore Grand Prix weekend where, you see elite drivers from across the grid trying to mingle with fans, mingling with journalists, and hearing from them firsthand is always nice. But I think more than that, I think the sort of buzz around the track, the festivities, the concerts, the merchandise selling makes it a really, really top weekend. And as you and I always say, to look on at the screens and seeing the Marina Bay skyline come to life and being beamed to the rest of the world fills me with a lot of pride as a Singaporean, and long may that continue.
And just to give the listeners some insight, we don't just sit in a media centre. There's a 20-minute trek from Millennia Walk to the media centre, and then we're up and down the paddock. And I'm saying that because that's when we really see everything Deepan touched on in terms of fan interaction, the fervour, the buzz, and everything that it comes with. Plenty of buzz this year. 300,641 tickets sold, the second highest crowd in its 16th year of running. So Deepan, here's the big question. What do you think keeps this the hottest ticket in town?
Wow, I may have written an article on this. No, but I mean, seriously, I think really what makes it different from the other races, and this is coming from people that I've spoken to who have been to multiple races on the calendar, is that, Singapore really brings out more than just a race. It's not just a race weekend, it's like a festival, is what one of my newsmakers told me. And I think you know this better than most people. I mean, you've been around the globe in terms of attending F1 races. And I think when tourists or fans come to Singapore, they know that they are getting a lot for their buck. And that's what it really is about. I mean, I mentioned concerts earlier, I mentioned the bars. And not just that, right? I think when you look at Singapore, it's also a spectacle in terms of the race itself. Yes, I know that we are talking about this on the back of a dominant, pole to checkered flag victory for George Russell, but it's really a daunting task for most drivers, and they keep talking about it. And I think that's what makes it a spectacle, not just the race itself being elite, but the festivities around the track as well.
And the drivers are going to be on overtime come 2026 because a sprint race has been confirmed. That's another thing that you spoke to some teams about. They must be quite excited to go sprint racing here.
Yeah, and the team principals and drivers alluded to that as well. I think it adds another layer of excitement to the Singapore Grand Prix. Maybe comes at the right time where, some people may be feeling bored of the actual events. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, one less free practice session, and let's be honest, no one really cares about the free practice sessions. So let's look forward to it. I'm waiting to see what unfolds in 2026. One more team, one sprint race in Singapore, so much to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. You talk about one more team. There is an interview with Cadillac coming up, both for Deepan and myself. Keep a lookout for that. To use a football analogy, you're absolutely right. Free practice is like training, right? The footballers really want to play matches. And the reason I'm using a football analogy is because we're going to talk football in a short while. But first, if you are a betting man, who would your money be on for the World Drivers' Championship?
I would love to say Max, but I just think that maybe the point gap is a bit too much for him to make up. So I'm going to go with Oscar Piastri. We mentioned earlier about how he has to shed that nice guy image to win the title. And I think after the events of today in Singapore, he might just do that.
Can't wait for that one. I tell you what else I can't wait for. The Lions, a doubleheader against India coming up very, very soon. Before we talk about the match though, plenty of chatter about a certain Jesus Casas. Split the noise from the news for me, Deepan. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, I mean, I just will point back to the reportage that we had a few weeks back now, where I did sort of have a sighting of Nick Montgomery as well as Jesus Casas, two guys who met with Sport Singapore officials as well as FAS hierarchy. These were the only two guys that came in here for those presentations, I will call it. And based off those two presentations, you will know that one of them has since got a job in the English Premier League with Nick Montgomery joining Ange Postecoglou at Nottingham Forest. So that leaves one guy. But I would still say that it's not sealed and done yet, because while I do believe contract negotiations would have begun by now in terms of getting the value, in terms of getting who he wants to bring to Singapore, it's not quite done yet. So I do believe the FAS is still sort of casting the net, still sort of looking for any more names that they may have missed in this process. Clearly, no stone is being left unturned in this search. Casas, I do expect Casas ultimately to get the job, but it's not done yet, and we've got to wait. And at the moment, no distractions with India ahead.
We wait for the proverbial here we go, but for now, all attention on the doubleheader against India. And it's not Gavin and Co are the only ones who are serving the nation. Deepan, you're off to serve the nation as well, so might as well get your thoughts before you go on and wear green. The boys are going to be wearing red, representing the nation, and this is an opportunity of a lifetime, really, in terms of where we stand with regards to the road to Riyadh. How do you think the boys are feeling?
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's excited, and also a bit of nerves will be in the picture. I mean, such an opportunity doesn't come around often, and I think we have talked about this many times on your show and in private, where this is really our best chance to get to the Asian Cup. Even to talk about that in this manner, to me, sometimes gives me goosebumps. And these two matches against India comes in a context where India are not quite at their sort of best at the moment in terms of what's happening in the domestic league, in terms of the kind of players that they've called up to this window. So Singapore must know that. The players know that, I'm sure. A lot is on the line. I think a lot will depend on that first game in terms of what happens at the National Stadium. But if we get a good performance, a good result there, then I think the second one we go into with good momentum and perhaps can get the job done in that manner.
We've been in this situation before, all eyes on the national team. Sorry to say, more often than not, history has proved that they've been a letdown in that sense. But this opportunity, this 3 points, getting the right start ahead of the doubleheader against India is going to be so important, and that's what is cranking up the pressure ahead of the home clash.
Yeah, for sure. I think what is sport without pressure? And when there is pressure, I think that the strong guys, the leaders need to come to the fore. And thankfully, we have that in Haris Harun, who has had his lows as well in terms of being almost there but not quite getting things over the line. I'm sure he will remind his teammates about the heroes that have come before in terms of the Singaporean teams that have really got almost there but not quite there. And this is a chance for them to do it. And to me, I think what's really important here is really the luck that has come our way in terms of the group that we find ourselves in. The fact that we went to Bangladesh, got a very crucial victory. The fact that we have India where they are at the moment. Things like that will not come around often, and the squad needs to be reminded time and again that this is really it for them.
Yeah, the stars seem to be aligning. Let's see if the points align. There's so much to look forward to. Sports Minutes will be at FAS Media Day, catching up with some people from the Lions then. Till then, Deepanraj Ganesan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Raushan.
Sports Minutes on Money FM 89.3.